Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be talking about quality of life updates. We're going to talk about some things I'd love to see added to the game to just make the quality of life a little bit better, make the game flow feel a little bit more natural in certain times, and just kind of allow players to have a bit more freedom in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So with that said, like, subscribe, comment. Let's give a shout out to our channel members, as always, for their continued support. If you guys are ever interested, that link is down below, along with a link to the Discord server. Go check it out. Really appreciate these guys. Just keep the faith, believe in me through good, bad, thick, thin, whatever the case is. Y'all are the best, and I can't thank you enough. So I, am humbled, honored, and blessed to be able to bring you content, and I am so thankful that I continue to get to do this. With that said, let's get in here and let's talk about some quality of life. So, the first one I'd love to add is a territory war defense edit button. Before the attack phase starts, we should be able to edit our territory war defense. The amount of times you'll see somebody put Shorty with their Ahsoka team instead of Hu Yang, or I've seen people accidentally put Rey with their, Leia team, or vice versa. Or, you have the person who accidentally forgets to put a light side on a line force user with like a Star Killer team, Like, there's all these examples where you set a team and you can't edit it. That's a huge problem. Because there's nothing of detriment to Capital Games by allowing this. There's nothing that this would be an unfair advantage for guilds. Like, there's nothing that this would do that would be detrimental to the game. It would just be a benefit. It doesn't need to be, saving it as much as I would love that, like GAC. But it would just be nice to say, hey, you set this team down, you've got time to edit it. You've got time to put the right Datacron on, or even potentially take that Datacron off. I don't think there's a big problem with that. I don't see the risk here. I only see the potential upside. I also think this would just let players feel a little bit more control over the game. Especially in a game mode like TW, where there's a lot at stake for a lot of guilds. This is a very competitive game mode. And, we make mistakes. We're human. It's going to happen. And to not have like a oopsie button is kind of frustrating. And, again, if I set a defense, it could be sitting there for 20 hours. There's so much time in between there. It makes no sense not to have one of these. I continually say, I don't know why this hasn't been a thing. Again, I'm not saying that you need to be able to, save my defenses, but just let me change it once it's down there for that period of time. Next, we need a mod loadout cap. We need to be able to cap the mod loadout. One of the big problems is that there's not enough loadouts in the game. I think you can only save 200 mod loadouts, and we have almost 300 characters. And this is becoming a larger and larger issue for a lot of us, where you're having to switch mods for various game modes, or you're trying to save the mods that you have on characters. You don't have enough of them. This is not a super hard thing to implement. There's no way this is a hard thing to implement where, hey, we can save the mods and, the world will be a happy place. Like, it would just be nice if we could do that. Again, I don't think that's asking the moon. I think that's a pretty reasonable request to expand that. And to even go a step further with this, saving mods in this game is a pain. You've got to, if I want to save the mod set that I have on, let's just say Vayne, I've got to go click Vayne, assign loadout, scroll all the way down, loadout from Vayne, click here, and then let's say I wanted to save Brutus. I've got to go here, do the exact same thing, scroll all the way down, create loadout from, there it is, and move on with my life. It's a lot. It's a lot to be saving these loadouts. It's a lot to be doing that. I think one of the best things they could add, increase the cap, and then just have a thing in here where it says, create new loadout, create loadouts from current mods, and that you just click this button, right? You can like delete, maybe you delete a tab or something, or you have like a page where it's got all the mods on your characters, and you just go and click refresh, and that it saves the mod sets that are currently on your characters at this time. I think that would be really helpful, where you can click that every once in a while as you're changing mods, as you're putting things on. Because a lot of players, they say, they need hot utils to be able to change mods because it is so time consuming. It's expensive. There's a lot of, there's a whole bunch of issues with mods that can lead to this. But I think the biggest one for me that's frustrating is that I can't save them, and it takes a while to save it, and switching mods around. It's just not a fun part of this game. This would eliminate a lot of what I call dead time. That time in the game where you're not really playing it. You're almost managing it, right? Okay, I've got to put this mod here, this mod here, this mod here, this mod here. It's a very time-consuming process, and especially for those players who, the example I would use is, when you have to take mods from a lot of different characters, you've got to do a lot more remodding. When I go into the raid, my Disguised Clone Trooper, these are his current mods as they stand. When I go into the raid, I literally, I was getting lazy. I just take Starkiller's set and put it on him. Literally just take Starkiller's set and put it on him. Which sounds so funny, but it's literally, I'm just like, you know what? Just take Starkiller's set. That works. Because it's slower, it's got the offense, all that works. But a lot of players don't have that luxury of having that deep of a roster. You can just, hey, I'm going to, plop this character's mods on. So they have to spend a lot more time, and if you're doing that for a lot of game modes, it's a lot of time where you're not actively participating with the game. Next one, increase the energy cap. This is an interesting one. This is one that I don't see come up a lot, but hear me out. One of my frustrating parts of this game is that the 144 energy cap has been around for I don't even know how long. And what it kind of does is forces you to log in at certain times in order to make sure that you use up all of that energy. And 144 sounds like a lot until you think of all the bonuses they throw out. You think about your daily energy. It can be a lot. And I personally just feel like it would be nice to be able to allow that to accumulate a bit more throughout the day. Even if you doubled it, just double it. Get to like 200 where just allow a little bit more flow of natural, all right, I don't need to get on and, spend this little bit of energy sometimes because I'm going to be over my threshold. I just think that would be a nice touch for the community, especially as you've removed the cap on how many battles you can sim, where you can sim up to 100 battles. Could you just let us have more energy here as it is? And then, again, it just would make the game feel a little bit more accessible at times, because the one area that this kind of leads into is you've removed a lot of the impetus to have to be on at a very specific time in order for something to happen. You increased the raids to be a much longer period of time so you can participate. You think about, Squad Arena doesn't matter as much anymore, so players don't feel the need. Fleet Arena is the only game mode that truly has massive implications if you're not on at a specific time. And then you have all your energy collection. It'd just be nice to have a little bit more in the cap that you didn't feel the need to have to spend some of that immediately. You could just let it kind of accumulate until you're ready to use it sometimes. Because there's times where I'm using energy just because I don't want to get to my max when I'm not really ready, or I don't feel like it. I collect my energy. Okay, now I got to go do all these nodes to get back to 0. Just a little bit, it'd just be nice to, not have to do that all the time. Next is Conquest Feats UI, right? One of the most frustrating parts in Conquest is when you're going through a conquest and you're like, all right, I need to, this, booming, this, I didn't end up completing this because I didn't need to. I equipped it too late. I was kind of an idiot, but whatever. But you think some of those feats that are based around surviving a certain amount of times, or inflicting a debuff a certain number, inflicting disarm 15 times, blind 80 times, Spectre, 35 enemies with Spectre units. It'd be nice if while I'm in a match, I had a little toggle bar that would tell me, hey, you're this close to completing your said objective. You're this close to completing that feat of inflicting that, or, killing that many characters with it. I think that would really help us in Conquest, because sometimes you're not sure. Maybe you're farming it, or you're like, hey, how many of these do I need? Have I gotten any? I think that would be really beneficial for us just from a tracking perspective, because a lot of our time in Conquest is just spent trying to farm feats. And oftentimes you're like, oh, well, you're like 1 away, or you're 2 away, or you're a few away and you had an ability and maybe you didn't use it because you weren't sure. it would just be nice to be able to have a little bit more tracking involved, particularly when you're in battle, whether it's in, the pause menu or something. But I think that would really help us as players feel a little bit more connected with Conquest and feel like we don't have to spend as much time. Again, the big thing there being when you're trying to track feats, the global feats. If I'm in a sector, right, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go do this, say this Geonosian battle. All right, well, one, to see the feats for this sector, I need to click out of this battle. All right, here's my feats. But now I want to go see my global feats. There's just a lot of clicking that goes on. And it sounds like you're like, oh, it's just 3. But imagine doing that multiple times through Conquest. You could save players a lot of clicking, a lot of time, just by being able to give some tracking while in battle. The final one here, this is primarily for officers, right? It's primarily for officers, but would just help guilds in general. Allow us to lock planets in territory battles. Nothing is more frustrating than when a player goes and does an action on a planet that we're trying to lock down, right? They take the rogue action or whatever, and they go over the star count. Or they put a character into a platoon, not recognizing that we're trying to preload it. Just allow us to lock stuff. Like, I think as an officer, there should be a little bit more power inside of territory battles to be like, hey, you cannot do anything here. There's you have like the little banners of like focus deployment, no, or like, but why can't there be an option to be like, close it off? Like, we're just not going to touch it. We're not going to allow any kind of action there. I think that could really help, one, just guild officers not have to spend as much time in the game, but also to another level, it would give guilds a lot more freedom as a player, where you're not worried about, okay, am I going to it's going to cause less accidents. And I think just cause overall more allow guilds to get more from themselves, because I can tell you there's not a lot of officer tools in this game. And this would be a nice one where you could feel like I could block a planet off and I know, hey, no one's going to touch it. I don't need to monitor every little thing. I can just lock it off and nothing's going to go on. I can't tell you how nice that would be. And, to the extent of, okay, well, what if one officer does it, one officer unlocks it? Again, you can't solve every little problem, but I think just allowing that would be really nice, especially, too, for some of those lower level guilds where you're trying to really focus, or if you don't have Discord. I think of the guilds in this game who don't use Discord, which is crazy that, like, the, messaging system in this game is so bad that we can't really use Discord. We can't even use it. Very few people use guild chat. It's all just Discord. And I'm not saying that like I want to stop using Discord, but there's a lot of guilds who probably don't use it, and you kind of need that. It'd be nice to have those tools in game to be able to direct that kind of stuff. So that's my QOL. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. Love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.